All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa, two guys that are looking for new deals. And we'll start off with Trevor Lawrence. So it seems like they're progressing, getting a new deal done, and yeah, eventually they are going to get it. And Trevor Lawrence, looking to bounce back from the end of last year where, again, the Jags, they collapsed and Trevor Lawrence was dealing with a bunch of injuries. And they're going to get a new deal done. And I think Tua's going to get a new deal as well, which I think is going to be a mistake. But Trevor Lawrence will get. We're talking about Trevor Lawrence right now. It seems like it's going well. Yeah, negotiations are progressing well. They're hoping to finalize a deal soon. This extension is expected to exceed $50 million per year. And again, they're trying to lock up their franchise guy. And yeah, like I said, Trevor Lawrence coming off of a season, he passed for 4,000 yards, 21 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. So you would like the touchdowns to go up and the interceptions to go down. But again, also was dealing with a ton of injuries towards the end of the year. And yeah, he's looking to bounce back, like I said. And if he does bounce back, the Jags are going to be a good team. And they were looking to find consistency on offense last year. And when they were going through their struggles, they were still winning games. But again, Trevor Lawrence ended up getting hurt. And things kind of just unraveled from there. And then when it comes to Tua, so the Dolphins apparently have made at least one offer to him, but it was rejected. Now, their contract talks are ongoing, and both sides are looking for a long-term agreement. Tua has missed some OTA time, potentially linked to the negotiations. And Tua is set to make $23.1 million next season in the final year of his rookie contract. And he's trying to get paid, like some of the guys that have gotten paid this offseason, like Jared Goff, who just got a new deal. Joe Burrow got paid. So he's looking to get big money. And last year, passed for 4,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. And, he's looking and had around the same numbers as Jared Goff, who had 30 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, although I think Jared Goff is the better quarterback. But yeah, he's looking for a new deal, and against good teams last year, the Dolphins, the only team they beat on the road, the only team with a winning record that they beat were the Cowboys, who struggled on the road. They got blown out by the Ravens. They got blown out by the Bills. They lost the division in the final week of the regular season. You lost to the Chiefs twice. They lost to the Eagles when, the Eagles were still, before the collapse. That's the one thing that I look at, and that's why I had the Dolphins ranked third in my AFC East rankings. The Dolphins were not good against good teams. And you also saw when they lost Tyreek Hill in that game against the Titans, Tua did not play well. And, I've said this with other quarterbacks. You want to surround them with as much talent as possible. So, you can't be like, you could say, well, it's because of Tyreek Hill that, Tua had this good year. And he has a lot to do with it. But what do you want the Dolphins to do? Say, you know what? Tyreek Hill, you stand off to the side. Let's see what Tua is really made of. And then we'll pay him. It's not going to happen. But, yeah, I have my concerns with Tua. Now, thankfully for him, he stayed healthy the whole year. Because he had a lot of injury scares the previous season with the concussions, and, there was all that speculation on his career and if he's going to be able to continue playing. But thankfully, last year, he was able to stay healthy and, had a good season. But back to the performance side of things, because like I said, health comes first. And he was able to stay healthy, and there were no problems. And, I think many football fans were happy about that. But now when it comes back to the performance side of things, for me, I don't think he's the long-term answer. But like I said earlier in the show, what's the alternative? Then you got to look for another quarterback. And the Dolphins, on the offensive side of the ball, have a ton of playmakers. You look at the running backs, you look at the receivers. I mean, they got track stars all over the place. But when we talk about the best quarterbacks in the NFL, those guys elevate the guys around them. Tua does not. Tua benefits from the guys around him. The guys bring him up. And that is what's going to hold this team back. Because I think this team is very good. But the most important position, the quarterback position, is lacking. And that's why, if they give him a big contract, it's going to be a mistake. Now look at me, I'm a Giant fan. They gave Daniel Jones a contract, and that was a mistake. Now we'll see what happens this year. But sometimes, paying the quarterback might not be the best move. But because it depends on who it is, obviously. I mean, the Lions were paying Jared Goff. Yeah, that was the right thing to do. Because I think Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Tua. I mean, the Bengals paying Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's been to a Super Bowl. Tua hasn't really done anything. And he's got a lot of talent around him. And like I said, they gave away the division. They had a chance to win it and get the 2 seed against the Bills, and they lost that game. That was on Sunday Night Football. And then you got to go play in Kansas City in very cold weather, beyond cold weather, and you ended up losing that. And you were one and done. So, this is a big year for him, and curious to see how that all plays out. But I mean, if the Dolphins pay him, then they just got to deal with the consequences if it ends up not panning out. But, you got so many of these other quarterbacks in the AFC that are just better. That's what's going to hold the Dolphins back. And like I said, they were not good against playoff teams last year. The only game they won against a team that was over 500 was the Cowboys, who struggled on the road. And you look at the games that they had against, the Commanders and dropping 70 points against the Dolphins. Yeah, that was great. Watching, like I said, the track stars running all over the field. You're like, man, this offense is explosive. But then you see them go up against these playoff teams, and you're like, well, that's all just, they're frauds, as people would say. So, and I think Mike McDaniel's a good coach. He's one of the better offensive minds in the league, but like I said, the quarterback position is what is going to hold you back. So, but these two quarterbacks here, they will get their new deals. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is the better quarterback of the two. And I think that he's in for a big year in 2024 to show that he is the guy. And for Tua, he's going to have to do the same thing. But for me, personally, I have more faith in Trevor Lawrence than I do in Tua. And I also don't like saying that because Tua is a fellow left-hander. And I want to see him do well. And Another lefty quarterback, Michael Penix, he's not going to be starting right away, but, listen, I appreciate that as a lefty myself. So I want to see Tua do well from that aspect, but and he has done well, but it's just taking that next step. Are the Dolphins going to be a team that could be a threat in the AFC? And because of him, I don't see it. I just think you got teams that are just better. They got better quarterbacks too. So, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about these two quarterbacks. Would you pay these two quarterbacks, or are you trying to look for other options? I mean, when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, I think, I'm confident in him. Tua, for the long term, I don't really have that same confidence. But let me know what you guys think about these two quarterbacks and how you think they'll play in 2024. So when we come back from our final break of the show, we will talk about the New York Giants, talk about their defensive line, get into, talking about Brian Burns, the newly acquired Giant from this offseason. So that's what we will get into when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.